Deep in the outer fringes of known space, the vigilant dawn drifted silently. The probe's sensors scanned the void with quiet precision, gathering whispers of light and energy from a sector long considered barren. It was a routine sweep. Routine, to the point of monotony, until the faint pulse hit the arrays. Dr. Leela Chen sat alone in the dim glow of the command console, eyes fixed on the flickering data feed. She blinked, rubbed her tired temples, then leaned in closer. The signal was unlike anything the fleet's deep space monitors had ever picked up. It was faint, scrambled, broken, but unmistakably a distress call. "Impossible," murmured the young analyst. This sector was declared dead over a century ago. A dozen alarms blinked quietly on the console, but no one else on Earth had yet noticed the anomaly. No fleets were on alert. No emergency protocols triggered. But Lila refused to let the signal fade into the background noise of space. She isolated the frequency, ran the signal through every filter, every decoder. It pulsed weakly, distorted, but somehow familiar. It carried an unmistakable urgency. "Help. Help," echoed faintly like a ghost trapped in the wires. She sent an alert to Fleet Command. Minutes passed like hours. When her supervisor finally responded, it was with a skeptical tone. Probably a malfunction or a trap. The usual space junk, but Lila's gut screamed otherwise. The voice behind the signal wasn't human, nor was it any species known to the Galactic Registry. Whoever, or whatever it was alive, and it was calling out across a void that had long been silent. In the command room of the United Terran Fleet headquarters, Admiral Reyes paced back and forth. He was a man forged by wars and peacekeeping missions alike, a man who trusted data, but honored instinct. When Lila's report arrived, something in him stirred. A memory of Earth's darkest nights, of people lost, and the hope sparked by a single light. "Patch her through," he ordered. Lila's trembling voice came through the secure line. "Admiral, the signal is weak but clear. A distress call. From a system no one's visited in centuries, Nur. It's old, damaged, but alive. Someone is out there." The room was silent. Then Reyes spoke, voice low but firm. "We launch a rescue mission. No delays." Other council members protested. "It's a waste of resources. We have no treaty with Nur. No diplomatic ties." Reyes cut them off. "It's a call for help. We answer it. That's what makes us human." The decision sent ripples across Earth and the colonies. Ships that were meant for training, research, and defense were hastily repurposed. Engineers worked round the clock, reconfiguring vessels into rescue transports and mobile hospitals. Pilots trained for a mission none had faced before, an uncharted rescue deep in the unknown. As the first fleet prepared to launch, news broadcasts captured the moment. A signal from the void, a call unheard for decades, has united humanity once more, the announcer intoned. On screens worldwide, families watched, some hopeful, some fearful, as ships lifted into the sky. Back on the vigilant dawn, the probe continued transmitting data, its instruments flickering in the blackness of space. The call was not just a message, it was a beacon, a spark of life in a dead system, a plea echoing through time. Somewhere beyond the stars and silence, a single voice waited, and humanity was coming. The hum of the United Terran Fleet's operations center buzzed like a hive disturbed. Every screen, every console, every hand was focused on the same blinking blip, a distant star system with a signal that should have been lost to time. But it wasn't. And now the countdown had begun. Commander Arik Reyes stood tall in the center of the room, his face etched with the weight of the mission ahead. Years of battle had taught him one hard truth. Time was a ruthless enemy. The longer they delayed, the less chance they had of reaching whoever sent that call, and failure was not an option. "We've got 72 hours before the optimal jump window closes," Reyes said, voice cutting through the chatter. "Every second we waste, someone out there gets weaker. Or worse." Lila Chen stood nearby, clutching a data pad, her eyes wide but determined. The signal's fading, she reported. Power levels are dropping exponentially. If we don't get there fast, it could go silent forever. In the conference room, the political brass argued behind closed doors. Why risk billions on a ghost signal? One official asked. This system is outside our influence. We don't know the species, their technology, or if they're even alive. Another replied sharply. Because no one else will. Because humanity is better than indifference. The debate raged as the fleet scrambled. Military transports transformed into makeshift hospitals. Scientists hurriedly packed experimental medtech, hoping to patch wounds they'd never seen before. Pilots who'd trained in simulations now faced the terrifying reality. They were flying into the unknown. On Earth, the reaction was a mix of awe and anxiety. News feeds streamed continuous coverage, faces of commanders, families, survivors, of Earth's own crises, all speaking the same truth. This mission was about more than rescue. It was a test of humanity's soul. In the starports, crowds gathered as colossal ships lifted off into the black. Children pressed faces against windows, clutching tokens of hope. Soldiers kissed loved ones goodbye. Every launch was a heartbeat, in the greater pulse of the mission. Meanwhile, aboard the flagship Resolute, Captain Mira Vasquez reviewed the mission plan with her senior officers. We're the spearhead. Our job is to clear the path and protect the rescue teams. If anything goes wrong, we hold the line, no matter what. Her tone left no room for doubt. The tension in the room was palpable. This was not a training exercise. Lives would be lost. As the fleet slipped through the jump gate, stars warped into streaks of light, and the cold silence of space stretched endlessly around them. The crew worked in tense synchronization, navigation, weapons calibration, MEDI, teams prepping for immediate triage. In the ship's lower decks, Lila scanned every byte of data streaming from the probe's sensors. The more she analyzed, the more the signal felt like a pulse, a heartbeat struggling to survive beneath layers of cosmic noise. Suddenly, alarms blared. "Contact!" shouted the radar officer. "Unknown vessel, fast approach, too fast for any known civilian ship." Reyes and Vasquez exchanged quick, grim looks. "Battle stations," Reyes ordered. "Prepare for engagement." The bridge erupted into action. Red lights flashed, weapons hummed to life. But then the unknown vessel slowed, signaling its intent. Not aggression, but something else. A message came through, scratched and halting. Lila's voice cracked as she translated, "Do not abandon us, we are not lost, we are waiting." The crew exhaled collectively. This was no trap. It was a call for help, raw and real. As the fleet moved closer to Nur's system, the shadow of danger crept over them. Radiation spikes, scrambled communications, signs of decay in the star's corona. And yet, beneath the rocky surface of the distant planet, a single pulse beat stronger than ever, a fragile flicker against the darkness. Reyes looked at his crew, their faces pale but resolute. "We're not just racing time. We're racing hope." The mission wasn't just a rescue. It was a promise, and failure was not an option. The fleet emerged from the jump gate with a collective shudder, stars snapping back into their usual patterns. Nur's system loomed ahead, dark, scarred, and hauntingly silent. Where other star systems thrived with vibrant activity and bustling satellites, this one felt like a tomb. Commander Reyes stood on the bridge of the Resolute, his gaze locked on the ghostly planet below. The scanners painted a grim picture. The surface was pockmarked with craters, twisted metal debris littered the orbit, and the star itself flickered erratically, as if struggling to hold on to life. "Scan for life signs," Reyes ordered, voice low but steady. "Anything, anywhere." The crew responded with precision, but the initial readings were bleak. No atmospheric fluctuations indicative of advanced life. No energy emissions consistent with civilizations. Just silence. Then, deep beneath the planet's cracked crust, a faint energy signature pulsed. It was weak, barely above the noise threshold, but unmistakably alive. Lieutenant Mara Devlin's fingers danced across her console. "Commander, there's something down there. A shelter, maybe. Energy spikes consistent with a power source and a heartbeat. A murmur rippled through the bridge. The presence of life in this wasteland was both a miracle and a warning. "Prepare the rescue teams," Reyes said. "We're going down." The landing was rough. The fleet's heavy transports descended through clouds of dust and ash, atmospheric turbulence buffeting their hulls. The barren surface of Nur stretched endlessly. Jagged mountains of blackened rock, rivers long dried to cracked beds and ruins, monolithic structures half buried in the dirt, remnants of a once proud civilization. In the distance, the rescue team spotted a lone structure, shielded partially by the natural rock formations. It was a dome-shaped shelter, pitted and scarred, but intact. As the transport touched down, Reyes and his lead officers disembarked, their boots crunching on brittle soil. The air was stale and toxic by Terran standards, but their suits filtered out the worst. Approaching the shelter, the team's scanners detected weak life signs inside. One person, inside the dim chamber, lying on a cot surrounded by fractured technology, was Vita. Her skin was pale, her breathing shallow but steady. She was wrapped in tattered cloth, eyes closed, but the faint pulse of her heartbeat was unmistakable. "Medic, stabilize her," Reyes ordered, voice tight with emotion. The medics worked swiftly, their equipment unfamiliar but adaptable. After tense minutes, Vita's eyes fluttered open, large, luminous, filled with a mixture of fear and relief. For a long moment she said nothing, just stared at the strange humans who had found her. Then, in a hoarse whisper, her voice broke the silence. "They're coming." Reyes stepped forward, lowering his visor to speak clearly. "Who is coming? What happened here?" Vita's gaze flickered to the ruined landscape beyond the shelter's viewport. The shroud, a shadow that devours. It came silently, consuming worlds. Our people tried to fight, but it was relentless. It erased us, all but me. A shiver ran through the rescue team. The word shroud echoed in their minds, like a death sentence. Lila, standing beside the medics, gently asked, "Why did you send the distress call? Why now?" Vita's lips trembled. "I sent it before the last of our power faded. I hoped someone would hear, that someone would come." The room fell into heavy silence. Outside, the sky darkened as the dying star flickered once more, casting eerie shadows on the scarred world. The team realized that saving Vita was only the beginning. The threat was not past. It was still out there, lurking in the darkness beyond. Reyes turned to his crew, voice firm. "We're not just rescuers, we're defenders. We need to understand this enemy if we're to stop it." Back on the Resolute, sensors picked up strange signals, a low hum emanating from the system's outer edge, almost like a watchful sentinel. The shroud was waiting, and humanity's mission had just become a fight for survival. The sterile hum of the medbay was the only sound as Vita lay on the narrow bed, hooked to machines that beeped steadily, keeping her fragile body alive. Around her, the humans spoke softly, their voices careful and gentle as if afraid to break the silence that surrounded her. Dr. Lila Chen sat beside Vita, her translator device glowing softly, ready to capture every word. The young scientist knew the weight of what Vita was about to say. This was more than a history lesson. It was a warning. Vita's large eyes flickered open, dark and glossy like a storm-tossed sea. She looked at the humans, strange, soft-skinned, beings with an uncanny kindness in their gaze, and for a moment her defenses faltered. "They call themselves the Shroud," Vita began, her voice barely above a whisper, thick with pain and fear, an endless shadow creeping from system to system, devouring everything. "Their ships are like black holes, silent, invisible until it's too late." The room seemed to shrink around the crew, the weight of her words settling like a heavy fog. "They do not negotiate, do not ask for surrender. They erase entire worlds, as if they never existed. Their purpose, I do not know. Some say they are a natural force of the galaxy, like a plague or a storm. Others believe they are a weapon, designed to cleanse the stars. Lila's fingers trembled as she typed the translation. How did your people fight them? She asked gently. Vita's eyes darkened. We fought with everything we had. Technology, weapons, alliances. But the Shroud adapted faster. It learned, outmaneuvered us, outmatched us. Our fleets fell like rain. Our cities burned. She paused, swallowing hard. The last battle was on our homeworld near. Our leaders made a desperate choice, to send a signal into the void. A beacon, to anyone who could hear, anyone who could help. Her voice cracked. I was chosen to survive, to wait, to hope. Commander Reyes stepped forward, his face grim. And you waited all this time? Vita nodded slowly. Time means little to me now. Centuries passed. Many who heard the call ignored it or deemed us lost. But the human fleet, you came. The crew exchanged glances. This was no ordinary rescue. It was a lifeline thrown across the stars to a civilization on the brink of extinction. Vita's gaze locked onto Reyes. Why do you help us? Earth is distant. Your people have their own struggles. Reyes's jaw tightened. Because when one cries out in the darkness, the rest of us answer. We remember what it means to be vulnerable, to be alone. You are not just another species to us. You are proof that the universe still has hope. Vita's lips curved into a faint, grateful smile. Hope. It has been a long time since I felt it. The medbay door slid open, and Captain Mira Vasquez entered. Vita, we need your help. We must understand the Shroud to stop it. Can you teach us, show us how to fight it? Vita's eyes darkened again, a flicker of fierce resolve lighting them. I will show you what I know, but understand, this enemy is not like any you've faced. It is everywhere and nowhere. It moves through shadows and silence. She sat up, drawing strength from the gathered humans. If you want to save your worlds, you must think like it. Adapt. Become unpredictable. Relentless. Lila stepped closer, voice firm. We will learn. We will fight. Vita studied the faces around her, sensing the determination, the fire. For the first time in centuries, she felt that the dying flame of her people might yet be rekindled. Outside, the distant flicker of Nir's fading sun reminded them all that time was running out. The Shroud was still out there, waiting, and humanity's choice to answer a forgotten call had set a chain of events that could change the fate of the galaxy forever. Reyes turned to his officers. Prepare for what's next. We're not just rescuing a survivor, we're inheriting a war. Vita's tale had opened a door, one they could never close. And the universe was about to learn what it truly meant when humanity mobilized instantly. The air on the bridge of the Resolute was thick with anticipation and something sharper like the edge of a blade. Commander Reyes stood rigid, his eyes locked on the tactical display as a new blip appeared on the radar. It wasn't just any signal. It was a Shroud scout vessel, an inky black silhouette moving with eerie silence toward the fleet. This is it, Reyes said, voice low but fierce. Our first real test. For months, humanity had poured every resource into understanding the Shroud, from Vita's haunting warnings to frantic research by the fleet's engineers. They knew the enemy was terrifying, adaptive, and merciless. But they also knew that hiding would mean extinction. Battle stations, Reyes ordered. All units prepare to engage. We hit hard and fast. The Resolute's engines hummed to full power as fighter squadrons scrambled from their bays, streaking through the blackness like swarms of fireflies. The shuttle bays buzzed with the activity of medics and engineers, ready to repair or recover the wounded. The Shroud scout loomed closer, an unnatural void that seemed to swallow the light around it. It moved unlike any ship the Terrans had seen, slow, deliberate yet fluid, like a predator stalking its prey. Lieutenant Mara Devlin's voice cracked through the comms. Shroud vessel closing in fast, shields at 60%, weapons primed. Reyes's jaw clenched. Target their sensors. If we can blind them, we might gain the edge. The first volley of plasma shots flared, streaking through space toward the Black Scout. The Shroud responded with a wave of energy, silent and crushing. sending human fighters spinning off course and knocking systems offline. Explosions blossomed against the void, but the humans pressed on. Vita stood beside Reyes in the command center, watching the battle unfold. "The Shroud learns quickly," she warned. "They adapt to our tactics. If we keep fighting like this, we lose everything." Reyes nodded grimly. "Then we fight smarter." He barked orders, shifting formations, and deploying electronic countermeasures designed from Vita's data. The human fleet twisted through the void, striking from unexpected angles using every advantage they had learned. A fighter pilot's scream echoed through the comms, followed by silence. One by one, the squadron was whittled down, but then, the tide turned. A well-aimed salvo tore into the Shroud Scout's hull, causing it to flare with erratic energy. The black vessel shuddered, its defenses faltering for the first time. "Direct hit," Mara shouted. "Hull breach imminent." With a final burst, the Resolute's plasma cannons pierced the Scout's core. The Shroud vessel disintegrated, collapsing into itself like a dying star. Cheers erupted on the bridge, relief flooding the tense air. But Vita's voice cut through the celebration, cold and warning. "This is only the beginning. They will send more." Reyes's face hardened. "Then we'll be ready." Word of humanity's victory spread quickly across the fleet and beyond. For the first time, the galaxy saw Earth not as a backwater or a bystander, but as a fierce protector willing to stand and fight. In the days that followed, fleets from allied species began reaching out, offering aid, supplies, and fighters. Refugees of other Shroud attacks, inspired by humanity's courage, rallied under a new banner of resistance. On board the Resolute, as the crews repaired and prepared for the next encounter, a new spirit took hold, a blend of hope and defiance. Vita's warnings echoed in every briefing, reminding them that survival meant more than weapons. It meant adaptability, unity, and relentless courage. Commander Reyes stood before his officers, voice resolute. "We've won the first battle, but the war is far from over. We fight not just for ourselves, but for every lost world, and we fight to ensure the Shroud's shadow never falls again." Outside, the stars glittered cold and distant, but within humanity's fleet burned a fire no darkness could snuff out. The Shroud had met its match. The quiet hum of the Resolute's conference room was filled with the low murmur of dozens of voices, representatives, survivors, and warriors from worlds once lost to the Shroud's relentless advance. The walls were lined with holographic maps of star systems scarred by destruction and hope. Commander Reyes stood at the head of the table, his gaze steady as the representatives took their seats. Beside him, Vita's presence was a reminder of what was at stake, a living link to the horrors faced by those who had already fallen. "This war is unlike any we've faced," Reyes began, his voice strong. "The Shroud doesn't just conquer. It consumes, erasing history, culture, and life itself. But today we stand not as isolated survivors, but as a united front." A murmur of agreement rippled through the room. Vita stepped forward, her eyes scanning the gathered leaders. "We have learned from our defeat. The Shroud is adaptive, but so are we. This alliance, this unity, this is our greatest weapon." One by one, the leaders shared stories of lost worlds and escaped refugees, their voices heavy with grief but laced with determination. The Terran fleet had become a beacon of hope in a galaxy suffocating in fear. Dr. Lila Chen addressed the assembly, bringing up schematics of new technologies based on Vita's knowledge, defensive shields that could mask entire fleets, adaptive weaponry that shifted frequencies to evade Shroud countermeasures, and sensor arrays capable of detecting the Shroud's shadow before it fell. "The key," Lila explained, "is to stay one step ahead. We fight not just with firepower, but with intelligence and adaptability." Outside the conference room, the crew of the Resolute busied themselves preparing for the next phase of the campaign. Pilots trained relentlessly, technicians labored to upgrade ships, and medics studied new healing techniques. The ship had become a moving fortress and a symbol of resilience. Meanwhile, Vita worked closely with Lila, sharing ancient tactics and cultural insights from her people. Slowly, a new doctrine emerged: one that combined human ingenuity with neuron resilience. One evening, as the stars shimmered cold and distant beyond the viewport, Reyes found Vita in the observation deck. "How do you bear the weight of all you've lost?" he asked quietly. Vita's eyes reflected the distant light of dying suns. "By holding on to what remains, the hope that others will carry the flame when I cannot." Reyes nodded. "We won't let that flame die." The alliance was not without challenges. Distrust lingered among some factions, old grudges simmering beneath the surface. But the looming threat of the Shroud forged a fragile peace, binding disparate groups with a common purpose. As the fleet moved toward the next target, the source of the Shroud's advance, new intelligence emerged. Reconnaissance ships detected an enormous living ship, an organic fortress pulsing with dark energy. "The heart of the Shroud," Vita whispered. "Destroy it, and the shadow will falter." Reyes turned to his council. "This is our chance. We strike at the core." The fleet prepared for what could be the decisive battle. Weapons charged, shields bristled, and soldiers steeled themselves for a fight that would decide the fate of countless worlds. On the eve of the assault, Lila approached Reyes. "This mission will demand everything from us, but if we stand together, we can change the course of history." Reyes looked out at the stars, a fire burning in his eyes. "Then we fight. Not just to survive, but to reclaim the light stolen from the galaxy." As the Resolute and its allied fleet advanced, the shadow of the Shroud loomed ever closer. But, beneath that darkness, a new dawn was rising. A dawn shaped by courage, unity, and the unyielding spirit of humanity. The Resolute led the fleet through the shadowed reaches of Nur's system, its engines glowing fierce against the darkness. Ahead, the Shroud's living fortress loomed, a monstrous writhing mass of black tendrils and glowing veins of dark energy that pulsed like a malevolent heart. It was both alien and terrifying, a warped organism that defied every known law of biology and technology. Commander Reyes tightened his grip on the railing of the bridge, eyes narrowing as the tactical displays showed hundreds of Shroud fighters, swarming around the behemoth like ants defending their queen. "Everyone, listen up," Reyes barked. "This is the turning point. Our objective: breach the fortress, destroy the core, and cripple the Shroud's ability to strike. We fight not just for survival, but for the future of all life." Vita stood beside him, her pale eyes reflecting the swirling black mass beyond the viewport. "The core is vulnerable, but heavily guarded. You must expect everything." The fleet surged forward, shields shimmering under the first onslaught of Shroud energy blasts. The air was thick with tension as human and allied vessels traded fire with alien tendrils that lashed like living weapons. Lieutenant Mara Devlin shouted from weapons control, "Incoming fighters! Diverting power to forward turrets!" Fighter squadrons danced through the chaos, weaving between pulses of dark energy and debris. Explosions blossomed like deadly fireworks. Some ships shredded mid-flight as the Shroud adapted rapidly to human tactics. The Resolute took a heavy hit, systems sparking and alarms blaring. "Damage report," Captain Vasquez demanded. "We've lost primary shield generators on the port side," her officer replied. "Secondary systems holding for now." Reyes grimaced. "Keep those shields up. We don't get a second chance." Vita's voice came over the comms, steady despite the chaos. "Deploy the adaptive countermeasures now. Change frequencies every 10 seconds. The Shroud's sensors are tuned to predict patterns. Break the pattern." Technicians scrambled to implement the new protocols. Slowly, the tide began to shift. The fleet's movements became erratic, unpredictable, slipping through the Shroud's grasp like smoke. In the belly of the beast, landing teams prepared for descent. Soldiers, engineers, and medics bracing for the fight of their lives. The Resolute's shuttles launched, cutting through the fortress's organic hull and touching down on a surface that pulsed beneath their feet. Inside, the corridors were alive, walls breathing and shifting with an unsettling intelligence. Edie led the team, her steps sure despite the alien landscape. "The core is ahead," she warned, "but the Shroud defends it with more than weapons. It feeds on fear and doubt." Soldiers moved cautiously, weapons ready. Then from the shadows, tendrils lashed out, organic, twisting, crushing. The team fought back fiercely, cutting through the dark appendages with plasma blades and rifles, but the creature was relentless. As they neared the core chamber, the air thickened, charged with a malevolent energy that seemed to sap their strength. Vita's breathing grew labored, her face pale. Almost there, she urged, voice steady. Finally, they reached the core, a massive pulsating orb, glowing with an eerie black light that warped the very air around it. Commander Reyes and Vita stepped forward together. "This ends now," Reyes said, raising his weapon. With a coordinated strike, the team unleashed a barrage of explosives and energy blasts. The core shuddered violently, its dark light flickering. But the shroud fought back. The fortress convulsed, tendrils writhing in pain, sending shockwaves that rocked the landing teams. Vita's voice broke through the chaos. "Now, Reyes, focus the energy. Destroy the heart." Reyes unleashed the final blast, and the core exploded in a blinding flash. The fortress screamed, an unholy sound that echoed through space as it began to collapse. Back in orbit, the fleet watched as the black mass disintegrated, light flooding the system once more. Reyes exhaled deeply, exhaustion and relief washing over him. "We did it." Vita smiled faintly. "The shadow has been pierced, but remember, darkness always finds a way." The victory was hard won, but it marked a new beginning, a chance for the galaxy to heal and rebuild, and humanity stood at the forefront, a beacon of hope born from a single desperate distress call. The void where the Shroud's fortress had stood was now filled with drifting debris, twisted metal and strange organic matter floating silently against the backdrop of distant stars. The once oppressive shadow over Nir's system had lifted, replaced by a fragile light that felt almost sacred. Commander Reyes stood on the observation deck of the Resolute, watching the slow dawn of a new era. The battle was over, but its echoes lingered, both in the physical scars on the fleet and in the hearts of those who had fought. Vita joined him quietly, her gaze distant yet calm. "We pierced the heart of the darkness," she said softly. "But the Shroud was only a part of a greater nightmare. Many worlds still wait in shadow." Reyes nodded, turning to face her. "We've rallied the galaxy's survivors. That unity is our greatest strength now. We will rebuild. We will protect." The medbay was alive with activity, medics tending to the wounded, scientists analyzing alien technology, engineers restoring damaged ships. Hope was tangible in every corner, but so was exhaustion. Lila Chen approached Reyes, holding a datapad filled with the latest intelligence. "Our scans show pockets of resistance on several worlds. The Shroud's reach was vast but fractured. We can reclaim those systems." "Good," Reyes said, his voice steady but tired. "Every victory counts." Across the fleet, celebrations were tempered by remembrance. The losses had been heavy, heroes who would never see home again. Memorials sprung up in every ship's communal spaces, names etched in light, stories told and retold. Vita spoke at one such ceremony, her voice steady despite the grief. "We honor the fallen not with sorrow alone, but with the promise that their sacrifice was not in vain. Their legacy lives on, in the courage of those who continue the fight. The alliance forged in fire was stronger than ever." Delegates from countless species convened regularly, sharing knowledge and resources, united against any darkness that threatened life. Reyes found himself in meetings that stretched long into the ship's night cycle, strategizing not just defense but exploration, searching for new homes, new allies, and answers to the mysteries left behind by the Shroud. One evening, as the Resolute drifted in orbit around Nir's healing surface, Reyes and Vita stood once more on the observation deck. "Do you think we will ever be truly safe?" Reyes asked quietly. Vita looked at him, a faint smile touching her lips. "Safety is a horizon, always moving, but together, we can move faster than the shadows." He smiled back, feeling the weight of command ease for a moment. In the days that followed, humanity's fleet became a symbol, a beacon calling to every corner of the galaxy still hiding in fear. They carried the message of resilience, unity, and hope. The lone distress call that had once echoed unanswered now rang with a new purpose, and humanity, forever changed, stood ready, no longer as distant observers, but as guardians of a fragile, precious light. The stars beckoned, and for the first time in countless cycles the future looked bright.